Black people need to own our own businesses, which will provide an economic base. Teach our youth to become self-sufficient. Learn how to maximize our political affiliations and fight for criminal justice reform. You just tuned in to Black Power Presents with your host, Antonio Lipscomb. Come on, let's talk.
Are you looking for a job that can lead to a career opportunity? MCC and OPS have teamed up to provide education training and job opportunities. We're looking for people that want to learn and work at the same time. We have open enrollment for training in the field of construction and job placement. For more information, contact us at 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Again, that phone number is 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org.
The last one plays. Play intro.
All right, Facebook family, it's yours truly, Antonio Lipscomb. We got about 45 seconds before we go on the air. I'm your host of Black Power Presents, and we're hoping we can have another great broadcast as we come to you each week from the hour of 6 to 7 each week, just to talk about community, talk about politics, talk about the freedom of just being American and trying to see how we can push the Black agenda forward. One thing I do want to say, we don't exclude from anyone, but at the same time, we're unapologetically Black, and we are concerned about Black issues in our community. And the only way I think we can really deal with Black issues is being upfront about it, talking about it, getting it out there so that we can also be able to dialogue with those that would like to support us in our interests. I've got a special guest that I'm going to be bringing on in a moment. A dear friend of mine. I feel like we're brothers in the struggle, and also he's somebody that I kind of look up to as a minister in the gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I just got the utmost respect for him. I got a brief testimony of his as I was listening to his sermon one day, and I was telling you I was pleasantly surprised and also impressed. This man has come a long way, and I believe that the sky is even that much greater for William Bumpus, which is the executive director of Willer's Mission. As you all know, we always come on the show and the backdrop, and we're going to do a formal introduction for our radio listening audience.
10 seconds.
You want to be on this show? 317-239-1310. Call in. Feel free to call in.
You are live.
All right. Now I just already informally introduced our Facebook family and also our YouTube family. And now it's time to introduce our audience to our radio listening broadcast. I'm your host, Antonio Lipscomb. Black Power Presents. If you want to be a part of this broadcast, feel free to go on. You just use your radio and listen. But also, if you want to chime in, feel free to dial the number. It's 317-239-1310. We're looking for you to participate because this is your show. This was what makes the show, is by you being involved and participating each week. And a lot of times we don't really have a script. We don't have a dialogue. We just bring our guest on. And today we have a wonderful guest, a bright, a shining star. I would consider a man of the cloth, and also a man who has extraordinary testimonies, doing extraordinary work in Marion County and abroad. William Bumpus, which is over the Willer's Mission downtown, which does a wonderful job ministering to the men that are struggling to try to get on their feet. And so I'm excited to bring him on. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on right now. Hey, Brother Bumpus, how you doing, sir?
Hey, how's it going? Always get caught by the mute button. Everything's good. How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm just excited to have you back on our show. Look like you are the first person that's actually a repeat on the show. So congratulations for being another participant for Black Power Presents.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Definitely honored to be here.
Yes, sir. So we were talking during the week, and it would be remiss of us not to mention a good friend I think that we both have lost, As we all know, the introduction to the show, we hear a voice and we don't know who that voice is, and that voice is the late Mark Ellis, that's no longer with us. Surprisingly, was one of your employees down at the Wilderness Mission. Just a great light of the community. I believe he was a veteran. I met him when he was doing some veteran service work, and I think from that point, I think he moved over to working with the Wilderness Mission. And he's always been he was always to me a great sounding board. I mean, I would just come to him and express myself. And I always knew that it would be private. I wouldn't feel like I would be put on the wiki blink or anything about some of the things that we would talk about and share in our privacy. And he always gave me his utmost respect, and also gave me the bit of knowledge and understanding that I felt that I needed at the time. And surprisingly, he would return that. Sometimes he would call me and say, "Hey, man, this is how I'm feeling." And so it was like iron sharpening iron, to where we were able to just have that good, honest, unique relationship that you can't find. So he would definitely be missed. So what do you think about Mark and your interactions with Mark, and before we go into what you do with the Wilderness Mission?
Yeah, man. Mark was always, he was always a good guy to me, right? And I actually met Mark. He started working for me at Wilderness Mission probably about 4 years ago, but I actually met him several years prior to that. He would come in and do work for our vets, right? And he did a good job of that, man. I always liked his spirit and his heart. If you knew Mark, he had that voice, right? He had that. He had that voice that I used to want to have, right? That deep radio voice, and then when he would smile, man, he would just kind of light up the room, man. So he was definitely a special guy. He loved vets, but he loved all people. He was always looking for ways to help people move forward and to end their homelessness, man. And he's definitely going to be missed, and it's still it still hurts, right? When I think about it and all those things, and we'll be celebrating his homegoing here this upcoming Friday, and he will definitely be missed, man. He's a man that was well liked and well loved, man, and I have the utmost respect for Mark and his heart.
Absolutely. I mean, he was just a great guy, and it's such a heart-wrenching experience to know that, hey, Mark is no longer going to be with us. I was going through my phone contacts, and I ran past his number, and I said, man, let me just call and just leave a message for the family and say, hey, just any way we can be a support to him in this crisis, because it just came out of nowhere, unexpected. Matter of fact, one of the things what happened was I run a transitional house. And so the last time we were together, we went over to the transitional house, and he's like, yeah, he was pumped about it, talking about how we can get men in. And then I didn't hear from him any longer. And I'm like, well, that's kind of odd. When I call Mark, I mean, it's going to be at least a 24-hour, 48-hour max, that he will return the call. And I hadn't, I called him and called him again. And then it was like, finally, he kind of could tell, like I was kind of worried about him. So he was like, man, nah. I'm like, man, what happened, bro? I've just been blowing you up, texting you. And he's like, man, it's not like that, bro. He's just like, I just haven't been feeling well lately. And I'm like, man, well, just go ahead and get back on your feet, because, we got this work to do. And I just took it for granted that, he would just jump out the hospital and we would just continue our work like we normally do. And when I got the news from you that he's no longer with us, it just really kind of set my spirit back a little bit. But, at the end of the day, I believe that if anybody went to heaven, it's going to be Mark. And that's just my personal opinion about that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, definitely. It was a like you said, it was definitely a shock and a heartbreaker, right? And but he knew Jesus, right? And we know that if he knew Jesus and if he had that relationship with Jesus, we believe he is he's there with Jesus. So that's one thing we can celebrate and be happy about, and even in the midst of his pain, right? We know that he's in a better place.
And I agree with that. And I think that, when you look at life in relations to, pain and agony and struggle, and suffering and so forth. And I think that he kind of experienced a part of that as he was leaving out. However, you know, the ideal of doing God's will before you get in those moments, I think is real important. And as we see this election coming up, I was just listening to the former broadcast, it's just sometimes I guess you can get into these worldly scenarios and whatnot, and you can almost get lost. But I think you do need to keep a balance, you know, and making sure that you're calling the election is sure. At the same time, don't get unbalanced, because of course there's always work that God has for us to do here. And the thing about it is, with this voting situation, you know, I know that I showed up Saturday and the voting people were there, and I said, well, you know, I ain't gonna try to cramp the style of the voting people in the Willis Mission, trying to get, you know, everybody registered and everything, you know. So I went on and just, you know, went out. I still had to pop a collar a little bit, you know, and so I won't feel a little shameful. I can't do my little class in the Willis Mission this week. But you know, I'm thinking about talking to you about moving it to Fridays anyway, and maybe just driving those guys over, because I know with this election coming up and it being so serious, you know, and people really need to participate in this electoral you know, process. And we see like all hands on deck, people are really trying to make a difference. And how do you feel about that? You know, feel about this election and the homeless population being able to get involved?
I think it's important, right? I think when we talk about voting, I think it's important for everyone who is able and who has a voice to get out and vote, right? A lot of time from a kind of a thought perspective, you know, a lot of times you know, people have complaints, or they have these thoughts, or they have, you know, whatever they feel about the country and whatever's going on. But I think your vote gives you the right to speak on that, right? It gives you the right to be able to speak on those issues and talk about those issues. And again, it helps you to understand that you do have a voice, and that you are a person, and that you as a person count as we live here, you know, on this earth together as one people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you want to be a part of this broadcast, I mean, you got William Bumpus. Now I'm gonna tell you something about William. If I got a guy that I'm trying to get off the streets, and of course they call us because we're working in Marion County Jail 2 CCA, and I say, hey William, I got a guy, you know. A lot of times he's familiar with that particular person that I'm actually calling for. And that's amazing, because I mean, he's servicing over, you know, 200-300 people sometimes. So just to remember, you know, one isolated person, I can't remember what happened 15 minutes ago, but for him to, you know, continue to remember these guys and try to look out for them, I think is just extraordinary. But getting back to this voting thing, we know 61% in Marion County, people of color are homeless. And when you look at the reentry population, it seems like you got a lot of people getting out of these jails and prisons and whatnot, not having a place to go. And of course, the address they use is 520, you know, East Market Street, which is your address, which is the Willis Mission's address. And we're talking about voting. So a lot of times when you look at the legislators and the way the laws are impacting homeless people, there are those that would much rather push them back into the jail for the taxpayers to have to take care of these homeless people by the way of confining them, getting them from the downtown area versus these services. And politically, I know that, you know, you guys are 501c3 or something like that, I would believe, as far as, you know, the ministry and whatnot. But I mean, how are we arming these guys that they want to vote so bad to be in a position where they can consciously make the right decision, right? Because I know I'm kind of being a little long-winded with this, but just follow what I'm saying. There was the city council was actually trying to push a law to where if the homeless people were panhandling or something like that. Maybe you can help me out. I'm not totally clear about it, but I think it was more or less like a panhandling and also being downtown at a certain time, that if you get caught, you could go to jail or you could be fined or whatever. And all these type of things hurt the homeless. And when it comes time for them to stand up and have a voice for themselves, are we putting them in a position where, you just go vote Democrat or you just go vote Republican, and not necessarily be concentrated on who you're actually voting for? Because everybody's saying get out and vote, but how is your vote impacting you in your lifestyle and where you are? And as a director, how are you arming these guys to say, hey, these are some of the things that happened in the past, and not to say that, you tell them who to vote for, but just give them a chance to understand from an educational position how their vote counts and how their vote will affect them if they vote for the right or wrong person.
Well, I think that and you probably know this, when you come down there. I think that a lot of times what you find out is a lot of them guys will probably try to tell you, right, which way to vote and things like that. So what I found is,
right,
those guys know, right? They have life, they have experiences, right? I think that one of the biggest misconceptions is that a lot of people homeless, or they're dealing with things that have them in that circumstance that they just don't know, right? And the harsh reality is nobody knows what causes that homelessness, right? Nobody knows what each situation is different, and everything is different, right? So a lot of those guys just know from a political standpoint which way they're going to go. I think that the biggest thing that we want to make sure they know is, how does that help you move forward, right? Whatever decision you make has got to be a decision to help you move forward, because you're in homelessness now, but at some point you want to end that homelessness, right? So what are you doing to end that homelessness? That's why, and again, like, in like your program, you come in and you provide services to help them get out of that, right? Because again, hey, no matter who's in office and no matter who's elected, they still got to get a job, and they still got to get their life moving forward. They still got to in their homelessness or in that situation. So I think the main thing that we want to do is help them make those decisions and put themselves in a situation to where they can make educated decisions on what they plan to do, to end their homelessness. If that makes sense.
A lot of sense. Absolutely, it makes a lot of sense. And just to give a little bit of a pushback on that, oftentimes, we say, God to do it, just put it in God's hands. And I'm not slighting the fact that God can do anything, right? He can do anything. I believe that. But I think that God has created us uniquely enough in the earth and put us in here so that we can do something too, in relation to supporting what God has put in place for us to do. And oftentimes I feel like we make God work too hard, because we have the ability in certain moments to empower certain people that will help in that transition of them getting back on their feet. And quite frankly, there are some that will have that level of sensitivity and be concerned about how you work with a homeless person mentally, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, economically, to be able to restore this person to where, even if you don't really care about the person, let's get them, maybe off of your back as a non-for-profit, trying to make sure you have the necessary dollars coming in, and let's even increase our budget by having them get a job. So now they're not panhandling and making the city look bad, or making the city, be put in a certain light that is not drawing those other prospective people that they would desire to come to Indianapolis. So arming them with those right names of people to help them in their time of need from a budgeting position is very important. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with now. If you're talking about in terms of with the different resources, different people, the different organizations who are out there to help them, I think the city is doing a good job of providing programs, right, that help with getting people jobs, getting individuals experiencing homelessness jobs, getting them some of the major resources they're trying to get them. They got a big push right now with some of the CARES Act money to house like a big number of the homeless. I know that during this pandemic, we've been getting a lot of support from a lot of those resources and a lot of those names. So we're able to kind of put those out there and see where those efforts are getting us, moving forward to push the needle on helping individuals experiencing homelessness, especially, African Americans who do make up a large percentage of the homeless population. So I think that, here in the next few months, we'll start to see where those efforts are going, because right now there's a big push to end and help with a lot of those things that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's exciting to know. If you want to be a part of this broadcast, we welcome callers. Feel free to call in anytime to chime in on this conversation. We're talking about voter education, and particularly the group that we're referring to as the homeless population. If you got some thoughts, some comments that you would like to express, as you all know, with Black Power Presents, our primary audience is probably going to be Indianapolis, Marion County, which, African Americans, again, is 61%. We're over 11% of the, we only make up 23% of Marion County's population. Yeah, we get, when it comes to the homeless population, we make up 61%. And a lot of times, William, we don't hear that enough. We don't hear the fact that Black people make up 61% of the homeless population. I mean, we hear of all kind of programs and whatnot. But let's say this, like I was saying, I was talking to a friend, and he told me, about how he was helping serve a particular population. And I'm not going to, say who they are or whatever. But there are those that came around him politically, right? And they said, hey, this is what we're going to give you. We're going to give you this so that you can participate. And we really like what you're doing. Well, they gave him a few crumbs, but then next thing you know, they took his whole program and made it a part of what they were doing with their own agenda. And so his response was, well, I can blast them and tell what they are not doing, but I told him his time will be better spent instead of retaliating like that. We only got so much time on earth. And if you kind of put yourself in a position where you're fighting against the powers to be, then you get blacklisted and you probably won't be able to get nowhere, period. Or you can just fight for what you have been doing, and stay on the right road and the right track to continue to serve your population, and eventually, your good efforts will come to pass. So with that in mind, I would say I probably wouldn't point out the ones who's fighting against the homeless as much, but for the ones who are looking to actually help and support the homeless, I think that would be encouraging for those who are looking to vote a certain way to know. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, you have people who don't necessarily like the homeless, right? And they have their opinion, right? But you have those who really care, right? And who understand and who know that homelessness is a public issue. It's not just a certain group issue. It's a public issue, right? It's a public health crisis, right? So we have to do everything we can to help in every single way that we can to end homelessness for so many people. And dealing with what I deal with and seeing the people that I see, right? You realize and recognize that there's a great majority of those people, those individuals who just need some help, right? They need to get over those barriers, right? A person coming out of prison and he get a job and he can save up his money, he can get everything situated, but because of his record, he's not able to move in certain places or able to go certain places, right? So I think that everyone plays a role in helping to aid to get some of those things fixed, so that every person who is experiencing homelessness can have a viable option of ending that homelessness.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of homelessness and this pandemic, right? Corona. I'm quite sure. I haven't looked at the numbers locally, far as the jobs that have been lost, homes that have been lost, the income that people are impacted due to the coronavirus, and whether a person got afflicted with the coronavirus or just the fact that because we're in the middle of a pandemic that they became homeless. How is the Will of Mission and other groups that you're tied to, how are they being affected by, helping try to provide services to people that normally probably wouldn't be in that type of a position? Are you finding that there are people like that out there that you need to service?
I think the biggest impact that the virus has had is a capacity impact, right? Because of coronavirus, you're limited on how many people you can have in certain areas, how many people you can have in your building at a certain time, what hours of operations you could do. For us specifically, our building capacity was normally 400 guys, and right now, because of coronavirus, we can only have up to 250 guys in our building at one time, right? So right there, just that number alone, right, that's 150 people, individuals who may potentially be impacted if there is no place found for them to go, right? So I think that the bigger picture when it comes to coronavirus, the biggest issue we'll see is when as it starts to get cold outside, right? We'll start to see that number continue to rise, right? And again, my prayer and I hope is, that we do find places for them to go, and areas for them to go, so that they do not have to sit out there in the cold. I know that we're working with several agencies to try to come up with a plan to make sure that we make up for the capacity that we do lose.
Well, I think that's extremely important. Speaking of things politically, we know that games are played. So many games are played. And I think that's the reason why you offer up prayer, because prayer is essential. I mean, how can you not pray in this day and time to try to figure out a real solution, to what's really going on? Because, man, I tell you, it's something. But I think we got a caller. I think Larry's coming on again. Come on, Larry. Let's hear your comments.
That would be nice, Antonio, but you know what? The homeless is not going to end until we end the medication. We have to let the state of Indiana see what the consequences of their statutory and advocacies are all about. But every time you get some 501c3 going out here trying to mitigate the effect of our statutory enactment, then you got nothing coming, because you can't afford to do it. It's an institutional job. I mean, you get somebody that's going to tell you, hey, stay in your home, black man. Keep their kids at home until the sheriff comes and picks you out on the street, and then come out every Tuesday and get your box of garbage and go back home. So that's what they're trying to tell them, And why? Because 3,000 people have died, and 78% of them have been in nursing homes. So until we get the black on black crime, which is the new racism in IPS, where the white kids are going to school, the black kids are staying at home. Just think, Antonio, when they started cutting the utilities off out there on Franklin Road and out on Post Road and Penoffer and all those apartment complexes, because it's going to cut them off. There's going to be a ghetto like the Germans imposed on the Jews before the Holocaust. They put them in the area, they cut the Jews off, they come in and harvest their kids. You got these kids in these filthy conditions, and then they're going to take them and put them wherever they want to so they can make money off of it. So what we need to do is stop with the mitigation, Antonio. I know it's hard to do at this point in time since we're used to having it, but if we don't stop, it will never change. So,
well, thank you, Larry, for your comments. He made some strong comments, and whether you agree with Larry or disagree with Larry, he gets you thinking. and the ideal of these utilities being cut off, poor people not being able to sustain themselves, I think will be it's going to be a devastating thing. Hey, listen, we're coming up to a commercial. We're going to take a commercial break, and then right after the break, we'll hear from another caller. You're listening to Black Power Presents. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for a job that can lead to a career opportunity? MCC and OPS have teamed up to provide education training and job opportunities. We're looking for people that want to learn and work at the same time. We have open enrollment for training in the field of construction and job placement. For more information, contact us at 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Again, that phone number is 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Are you looking for a job that can lead to a career opportunity? MCC and OPS have teamed up to provide education training and job opportunities. We're looking for people that want to learn and work at the same time. We have open enrollment for training in the field of construction and job placement. For more information, contact us at 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Again, that phone number is 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org.
Okay, we're still in commercial break here. We got about 20 more seconds, and we'll be right back on the air. Just thankful for our executive director, William Bumpus, is with us, and we're getting ready to jump back on the line and hear from a caller.
2, 1, you are back live.
All right, this is Antonio Lipscomb, Black Power Presents. If you want to be a part of this broadcast, you would simply go and call in 317-239-1310. I have William Bumpus that's on the line today. He is the executive director of Willard's Mission, and also he's a preacher and a good friend of mine. He has an extraordinary testimony that we'll try to get in before we conclude the show. But go ahead, John. Let's hear from you, sir. How you doing?
Hey, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
It's like this. If I'm correct, you're saying 52 to 53% of African Americans are homeless. What is the church's mission? Why can't they put together as a group, all these pastors, go down to the mayor, the governor, whoever, and say, this is what we want for our vote. We want our people to have some homes. Why can't we do that? I mean, it seems very, very simple to me, because what do I get for my vote? What I want for my vote is for you guys to find some way to house these people. If you can't do that, then you don't need my vote. You need to be wrong. Is that hard? What the church is to help the people to house the wow.
Yeah, I think that is a worthy attempt that the church should be addressing and being a part of. So I'm in total agreement with that. But, right? No. That's not the help that they're asking for. But let me finish my thought, and we could have a little bit of a dialogue. Don't worry. We got a little bit of time to talk about this, so I'm not going to cut you off. But I want you to hear my point. I was listening to T.D. Jakes and Paula White as they were giving this presentation to the community, talking about feeding people and the homeless and whatnot. And one of the things I believe Bishop T.D. Jakes mentioned, which I totally agree with, was the fact that the church, when you look at the economy of the church primarily teach tithes and offerings. My theory on that is that people should just give as much as they can to help and support the church. I don't think I would limit it to a 10% give. However, that's the primary doctrine of the church, primarily is to give 10%. So if you got a few people that are giving 10%, and most of them do not give 10% because I'm a minister and I look at the books and I can tell if you had everyone giving 10% of what they earn, that the church would not be struggling and trying to pay its bills. But however, your point is that the church should extend itself to the homeless population, which I agree. I think that if the church got involved politically and began to galvanize itself together, then even some of the tax dollars, and I don't care if, the church creates a separate 501c3 to help get this work done, I think that this would be an extraordinary opportunity for the church. However, the problem I see with the church, and I think William is also, in the ministry and whatnot, is that the church, I'm talking about the Black church, this is just my opinion of that. If you're asking me that question, I feel like the church within itself has been divided. Even when you say church in America, you say denomination. When you say denomination, now you already know that denomination means separation. So within the separation, so denomination separates the church. Then also you look at the ideal of Black preachers not necessarily respecting each other's in the way that they should, and getting involved with certain groups that only care about certain populations of those certain groups. So there's another divide there. So when you keep dividing and dividing and dividing, the value of the church begins to diminish, because a lot of times what's happening is the church is saying, come, let's worship, give, go home, and let's do it all over again Wednesday or Saturday or Sunday or whatnot. And that's not necessarily the church I believe God set up. I believe that the church that God set up should be open 24 hours, and whatever need within that region, the church should be headstrong on making sure they're involved. And I see other races of people doing that. I see other races of people saying if there's a healthcare problem in our community, we're going to bring on the person, the congressman that votes on this to make sure healthcare is provided to the people in those pews. And that's the keynote speaker is going to be that person. And they're going to put that person, that council person on CNN and everything else to make sure whatever's being said that congressman is held accountable for that. But I'm going to allow William to talk about this and stay on the line, Colin. We're going to have a good conversation about this. William, the churches, where are they? How are they helping? How are they? I know that the church is doing a lot with Wilderness Missions by giving, I believe, but help me understand that dynamic.
Mm-hmm. I think that, and again, I think you mentioned I can only speak to what I see in terms of the church doing in Willow Mission, and I can only speak from a standpoint of what my church does, right? I think that the first thing I think the church has to do is I think the church has to stay in the calling that God has called that church to do, right? Some churches do some things, other churches do other things. I think that if we as believers get together and we start to ask God to send in those laborers, right? Send in those people who are willing to do the work, sending those people who are willing to go, then I think that it all gets situated. I think that when we talk about church and divide, and I think one of the biggest reasons for divide is nobody understands that it can be done differently, right? People have their opinions, people have their call, and people have their lane. I think that once everybody comes together for a common goal, no matter how we get that thing done, it gets done, right? Because at the end of the day, people need the help, right? People need to know. People need the education. People need the jobs. People need the services. People need all those different things. And if we spend so much time talking about the divide, then we cannot come together for the common goal. And I think that's the important piece of that. We got to do what we were called to do. And again, because if we go by a biblical concept, then God is the one that called each member to do what he called each member to do, right? So if we do what God called us to do, then we know that God got somebody else who's gonna come and labor beside us to take care of the other part of that.
Right. Caller, are you satisfied with that line of dialogue? Is there any final comments as we go to the next caller? I can't really hear you. Is there any way we can hear you? Because you're kind of low. Is there any way maybe you can talk into your phone a little stronger or something? Because I can barely hear you now. I can hear you better now, but it's not as loud. Go ahead. We actually get about 30 to 35%. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Don, for calling. We appreciate that. And he's saying that there's a model out there that the churches can take advantage of. And I understand that God has called each individual to do certain things, but when we look at the church is a corporation. It's a corporate body of members. And I think that when we find certain prevalent things in our community, that's the time for us to bind together as a corporate body to attack that thing. You know, if you know that you got primarily a Black community church, and you know in your community 61% of those people are homeless, then it doesn't mean it doesn't take away anything from me in my individual calling. My calling should be connected to a bigger purpose, and that bigger purpose should be me solving the problems that's going on in my community, in my region. Okay, do we have another caller on the line?
Yes. Virgil B.
Hey, Virgil, how you doing?
Good. I was just listening. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you, sir.
Okay, good. It's quite a bit of dialogue back and forth. And I would just say that, like the brother said, we all have a part. So we all have a part to do. And we can't criticize. I would criticize the church and the contractor. Right? That's to criticize us. Some people, you can deal with. Some people, you can't. And we just all have to see what is needed to be done and try to pull our part. I mean, that's really basically all we can do out here is be about these conference and just sit in. And it all boils down to who's funding. So much money do you have to do this and do that and benefit will. So it's distributed will. And people giving people definitely something that is needed for the whole. But what's needed is justice. What's needed is skill. What's needed is the method to make sure that men because always been especially with every other race, and we can create and we get enough. It's not all about everything. Most people either the slogan is a brother to the great thing. We have to be about being busy.
Yeah. Right.
How can you get up on your foot and get something done?
Right. Okay, and he brings about a good point, and I think Mr. Bumpus, you couldn't hear him, but what he was saying was that there's individual responsibilities. There's the churches and people that are providing services as far as food and whatnot, but with the homeless population, people need to get up off their tush, as he was saying. And get into workforce and start doing for themselves. Now, for some strange reason, there's this stigma on the homeless that people just think that most of these people are just deciding to be homeless and they just come to your shelter. The majority of them just come and just want a free ride. What do you say to people who think that way?
I say it's easy to see how people can think that way, right? I think that when I first came into working in the homeless system, I probably have my own preconceived notions as to why each person was in there. But then as you get to know the individuals, as you get to know their stories, as you get to walk them through programs, as you get to see the lives that they came out of, you start to see that each individual person has their own backstory as to how they ended up in a situation, right? We've had doctors, we've had lawyers, we've had all types of individuals come through our doors, right, who needed that help. And one thing I always say is, man, you just never know what situation will put you in a position to where you have to end up homeless, right? So I think that once you understand that and once you get that knowledge of the types of individuals that are there, right, then you understand that it could be, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters, your friends, your family, right, that are in those bad situations that could just need that help, right, could just need some resources and things like that. And I mean, what I see is the majority of the guys who come through our doors, man, they want to home. They don't want to be homeless, right? They want to do everything they can to get out of the homeless shelter, right? But it's just so many barriers to getting out of the homeless shelter, right? That it just, a lot of times after so long, it can leave a person hopeless, right? So what we want to do and what we want everyone to understand is that, hey, I want to give that guy hope. I want that guy to know that it don't matter how long it takes. I want to be there for you to help you in that homeless, to help you get your life back on track, because in our eyes, man, no one deserves to be homeless, and everyone deserves help.
Yeah, and like you say, it's one way of thinking when a person is not working in a shelter, and it's another perspective of a person who's actually in the shelter interacting with people that are trying to get on their feet. Now, I walk in the shelter and I make a call and I say, hey, come and join this training, the same training I'm playing for commercials on this broadcast. Come in and be a part of this educational piece. Simultaneously, let me get 2 forms of ID so you can go to work. And I don't have no resistance. For the people that can do it, they sign up graciously. Matter of fact, they are the best workers when it comes to recruitment. They are the best population. They are the best. They are the most dedicated. They are the ones who call me and say, hey, how can I do better? How can I move forward with getting myself on track? So the notion of every homeless person just coming down to the Wilderness Mission and want to get a meal and a cot, I mean, that's so much further from the truth. Now, one thing we have to understand, and I know this is a whole nother conversation, Indianapolis is not doing good with the mental health. And so you may run into a lot of people who need medication, need therapy, need psychiatric help and treatment that the city is not providing because they don't have insurance. So a lot of times, you find people like that can't operate in a regular employee environment. But that's not, all the people that are homeless. And so speaking of this, because this does lead back to something that's political, because right now, the Governor Holcomb, he got the next level jobs. And that gives me the ability to be able to have funding to get them that necessary education so that we can have the ability to be able to find these employers to be able to get these guys jobs and whatnot. So, when you're thinking about voting for somebody, understand the fact that, does this person have a job program that helps educate the people in Indianapolis to help them to understand how they can get to these jobs? Because a lot of times people don't know only 41% of Hoosiers only have a high school diploma. So when you start looking at these livable wage technical jobs, people in Indiana are not qualified for them because they don't have the education. So that can lead to homelessness. The fact that you're trying to get on your feet, but you got this poor type paying job that's not, that you're like 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless. So that's another way, we need to look politically. So we kind of, wrapping up the show. I think we got about 8 more minutes. So we want to make sure that you get all the time you need. Mr. Bumpus, is there some things that you think you want to share about the Willer's mission that people need to know and understand, and ways that they can be a part of it? We would love to hear from you in regards to that.
Yeah. First of all, thanks again for giving me this opportunity and platform to speak about the Wheeler mission and what it is that we do. I think that, again, a lot of people don't realize that we're more than just a soup kitchen, right? We're more than just a place for people to go. But we try to provide all types of things, right, for each individual who comes into our door to end their homelessness. I think ultimately, Wheeler Mission is a faith-based organization, right? So we believe that relationship with Jesus Christ is the key to ending homelessness and to getting yourself back on track and to getting yourself to where it is that you need to be. And what we do realize is that, not everybody wants to hear that, not everybody wants to believe that, but that still doesn't stop what it is that we do, right? We still provide that program or that service, so that whatever that resource that a person needs to end their homelessness, but we want to make sure we're there for them as long as it takes for them to do that, right? You mentioned the mental health problem, right? I want to be there for that guy as long as I need to be there for that guy until the city does have a better mental health service, right? Or until that guy does get to a point to where he wants to take his medication, right? I think that the most important thing that we as Wheeler Mission want to do is again help that person come out of whatever it is that they're going through to end that homelessness, to get back on the path, whether that's finding a job, whether that's finding a nursing home, whether that's finding mental health resources, whether that's finding getting back with your family, right? All those different things. We just want to be there for any person in the city who is experiencing homelessness. We have a place for men, women, and children. We have a separate location for women and children right off of Michigan and LaSalle. And you can always visit us at wheelermission.org and find out everything about what it is that we do and all the services that we do provide. So again, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on Wheeler Mission and the issues that we deal with.
Tell us about some of the programmings you have in Wheeler's Mission, just kind of helping people get on their feet.
So we have we have several programs to work towards getting people back on their feet, right? We have a addiction recovery program. We call it the Hebron program. That is for people who are suffering from severe drug usage and need to go into that intense separation from everybody else to get their head clear, to get their mind clear. It is a faith-based program as well. We have another program called Foundations, which is more so a life skills program to teach you listening skills, behavior skills, skills like that, so that you can, kind of learn what it is that you need to learn, right? Some people come into homelessness and they just need to learn how to talk to people or deal with people or work a job. So that program is for that. We have another program called the PASS program. That's for that guy who just don't know necessarily what he wants to do. He's suffering from some drug usage, and it's like an 8-week program that he can go through that program. We want to get his mind clear so that he can make a decision to whether he needs to go get life skills, whether he needs to go get further addiction recovery, or whether he needs to just go into the job training and job skills, right? That's where your organization comes in. You come in and you just grab guys out of the program who are ready to get their life back on track, and you give them the training that they need, and they're able to move forward in life, because that's what it is that we're trying to do for every person that comes to those doors.
Well, man, Godspeed to you, brother. You guys are doing an amazing job. We got a couple of minutes, so let's talk about the counselors. Like, how does the counselors interact with those guys? I mean, what type of people are they? Are they the right fit for those guys? Can you talk about them as well?
I think when it comes to counselors and case managers, I think the first thing that I look for is do you have a heart, right? I tell everybody, if you come to Wheeler Mission just for a job, you're probably not going to last long, because of the things that you have to deal with. Again, knowing that each individual has their own separate situation, right? That could be a lot for a person to deal with. So you have to have a heart to be able to have a relationship with the guys, right? Of course, a lot of what it is that we deal with is building those relationships, because a lot of people who do come into homelessness have been a lot of that trust has been broken, right? People have have done them wrong and done them bad in the past. So you got to build those relationships so that you can help that person develop, what path it is that he wants to go on. So I think that we want to do everything we can for each individual person that comes into the building. So all of our case managers has a unique skill set that they work with, right? So one case manager may work with just veterans. One case manager may work with guys who just or have jobs. One case manager may work with guys who need addiction recovery, and all of them specialize in those things. Another thing about our case managers is a lot of them came out of that life, right, where they were down to their relationship, and they gave their life to Christ, and they got back on path, and so they can speak directly to the guys in terms of what it is that they're going through, with that understanding of, hey man, I understand it. I've been where you've been at, and there is a way out, and that's that extra hope that they need to end their homelessness.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on our show. This has been your second time coming on. As we wrap up, I just want to encourage all those that are in Indianapolis and surrounding areas. Let's do what we can to support the Wheelers Mission. This is one of the greatest organizations that I am aware of here in the city, that's doing an extraordinary job in working with those that are homeless. A lot of times the city council is looking for a solution. Well, the solution is Jesus Christ. That's the first solution. And then we follow that up with what Jesus taught, and that's to care, to love, to be concerned about your neighbor, feed your brother, clothe your brother or your sister or your children. Those are the things that should come from the heart. And even if you don't believe in Christ, have a heart and a passion to want to help somebody so that you can go beyond yourself. And that's what life is worth living, when you can do something to help somebody else. All right. This is my time. I've been your host, truly, Antonio Lipscomb, Black Power Presents, and you all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful week. God bless.